Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for EarthEcho's presentation on solving water together, diving into water quality. My name is Domingo Cortinez. I'm a former EarthEcho Water Challenge Ambassador, and now I serve as a Youth Leadership Council member. And I'm so excited to be here to help co-host and moderate this presentation. So EarthEcho International is a nonprofit organization founded on the belief that youth really do have the power to change our planet. And because of that belief, our programs and resources have been able to reach more than 2 million people across the globe in over 146 countries. And this week, we happen to be celebrating World Water Monitoring Day. Everyone, no matter who you are, has a great opportunity in helping to protect our local water resources. And today, we're so excited to have students from all over the globe joining us as we learn more about the importance of water quality monitoring. But before we get started, we want to give a special thanks to our event sponsors, Xylem Watermark and the Water Environment Federation. So to get started, let's introduce our incredible guest, Michelle Muller, an executive assistant at Xylem. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do and where you're joining us from?
Sure. Hello, everybody, and thanks so much for joining. I'm an executive assistant at Xylem. I've been here for the past 5 years. And I'm very excited. Not only do I love my day-to-day operations, but when I can share what I know with the younger generation, it's one of my passions. So thank you, Domingo. So today, we're going to be joining global efforts as part of the EarthEcho Water Challenge to explore and protect local water resources. After learning more about the importance of our freshwater resources and habitats, I will share with you the components of the EarthEcho Water Challenge test kit, and Domingo is going to help us with the demonstration on a water sample he's collected from a local waterway. So water is a very important resource that we all need to survive. So here's a question I have for you. How are you connected to local water resources? How do you use water in your daily lives? Not only do we use water for drinking, but we also use water for cleaning, cooking, growing food, and many other things. While the earth is a watery place, the amount of available fresh water is actually very limited. Here's another question for you. What percentage of the earth's surface is covered with water? Do you know? Well, I'll let you know. The answer is 70%. Another question for you. What percentage of the Earth's water resources are available for human use? And that answer is less than 1%. So although water covers about 70% of the Earth's surface, most of it's in the world's oceans. That's 97%. In the form of salt water, which cannot be used to support life on land because of its salinity. That's the salt content. After oceans, 2% of the remaining water is frozen in ice caps and glaciers. Although this is fresh water, it's also unavailable to plants and animals that live on land because it is frozen. The remaining water on Earth, less than 1%, is found in groundwater, freshwater lakes, streams, and as water vapor in the atmosphere. This 1% is the water available for humans to use around the globe. The limited supply of fresh water continuously moves around on the earth and in the atmosphere through a process known as the water cycle. Before we look at the water cycle as a whole, let's discuss some key terms. You will often hear and see a number of words associated with water. Let's take a look at some of these words more closely. Read through the definitions as I reveal them. So we have precipitation. That's the water that falls from the atmosphere to earth in the form of rain, hail, sleet, or snow. Evaporation is the process by which water returns to the atmosphere in a gaseous state. Condensation, that's the conversion of water vapor to a liquid state. Transpiration, that's the release of water through the leaves of plants. And aquifer, an underground layer of sand, gravel, or fractured rock that is saturated with water. All water exists in a watershed, an area or region that drains to a river, river system, or other body of water. The water cycle is driven by heat from the sun and gravity that moves water underground. Water precipitates from the clouds, falling as rain, then infiltrates or soaks into the ground to be stored as groundwater or taken up by plants. Some groundwater seeps deep into aquifers to be stored for long periods of time before recirculating back to our oceans or seeping up through an underground spring. Energy from the sun powers evapotranspiration, the evaporation of surface waters in lakes, rivers, and oceans, combined with transpiration, which is the release of water through the leaves of plants. Once the air becomes thick with the water vapor, it condenses to form clouds. Then the cloud cycle will begin again with precipitation. I have another question for you. What are some of the water-related issues that you see in these photos? With the limited supply of fresh water on our planet, it is critically important for us to protect our water resources that all life on this planet rely on. Issues such as water pollution, mismanagement of stormwater, land use, and the effects of climate change are just a few factors that can affect people's access to clean water. Take a moment to think about some of the threats or challenges facing your local water resources. So the EarthEcho Water Challenge is a program of EarthEcho International, an organization founded by Philippe Cousteau, who is the grandson of the legendary ocean explorer Jacques Cousteau. The programs of EarthEcho International are designed to support and inspire young leaders like you to take action to help ensure a sustainable future for our planet. Through your participation in the EarthEcho Water Challenge, you will join over 1.6 million volunteers who have taken action to monitor water quality in 146 countries. Together, you'll have the opportunity to test the quality of local surface water from your region, share your data through the EarthEcho Water Challenge global database, and discuss strategies to take action to protect your local waterways. You can head over to the monitorwater.org site for more information about the Water Challenge or to order a test kit to monitor surface water in your community. So the EarthEcho Water Challenge test kit that Domingo will be demonstrating today tests for 4 water quality parameters: temperature, turbidity, pH, and dissolved oxygen. Let's learn a little bit more about these parameters. The first physical test we will talk about is temperature. This measurement tells us how hot or cold the water is. In the picture, you can see the equipment that we will be using to test this. It's an indicator. These thermometer strips that are on the side of our testing jar will allow us to calculate the water temperature in degrees Celsius. To determine whether or not a temperature reading is optimum, you must learn more about the aquatic organisms that are native to your region. All aquatic organisms, such as stream insects, fish, plants, etc., need a certain temperature range to survive and thrive. For example, Chinook salmon prefer temperatures from 5 Celsius to 10 Celsius, which is approximately 41 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. But tropical autumn angelfish prefer temperatures from 26 to 29 Celsius, which is about 79 to 84 degrees Fahrenheit. If the temperature of a water body rises or falls significantly for a prolonged period of time, aquatic organisms will become stressed and die. Temperature also affects the amount of oxygen water can hold. Cold water holds more oxygen than warm water, and affects the rate of photosynthesis by aquatic plants. Warm water discharged from factories, the removal of trees, and vegetation that shades streams, and water that runs off city streets can cause temperature changes that threaten the balance of aquatic systems. Domingo, can you tell us what the temperature of your local body of water was?
Yeah, so when I tested my water, it was about 30 degrees Celsius, which is about 85 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's normal for water in Miami since it's late summer.
Great. So here, the second physical test we're going to talk about today is turbidity. This measurement tells us how clear the water is. In the picture, you can see the equipment that we'll be using to test this indicator. The black and white circle sticker you see in the water testing jar is called a Secchi disc. By comparing how well you can see the Secchi disc through a sample of water to a turbidity chart, you can calculate how clear the water is. So, in general, the clearer or less turbid the water, the better. If your water tests high for turbidity, that implies that there are solid particles suspended in the water that are making it hazy. These particles can be bad for the water quality because they could clog fish gills, block light from aquatic plants, and absorb heat. Turbid water is caused by things like clay, silt, organic and inorganic matter, and microscopic organisms. Turbid water might be the result of soil erosion, urban runoff, algae, and the stirring up of bottom sediment, often caused by boats or too many bottom-feeding fish. Turbidity is not the same thing as color, since darkly colored water can still be clear and not turbid. Domingo, can you tell us the turbidity of your water sample?
Sure, I have my water sample right here. Sorry, let me adjust the camera a little bit. And I don't know if you can see the Secchi disc, but if you compare it, it's somewhere in between 0 JTU and 30 JTU, which is pretty good.
Great, thanks, Domingo. So now we're going to test the third physical test that we have to talk about, and that is pH. pH is the measurement that tells us how acidic or alkaline the water is. In the picture, you can see the equipment that we'll be using to test this indicator. So to truly determine whether a reading is acceptable, you should do a little research about the needs of the species native to your region. In general, the majority of freshwater organisms live in a pH range of 5.5 to 8.0 on a 14-point scale, with 0 being the most acidic and 14 being most alkaline. For comparison, a lemon is 2 to 3 on the pH scale, while laundry detergents tend to fall anywhere from 7.5 to 10.5. Many aquatic animals will stop reproducing at pH levels around 4, and if levels drop to around 3, adult fish will die. pH can be affected by things like acid rain, wastewater, discharges, drainage from mines, and the type of rock naturally found in the area. So let's go back to Domingo, and he can tell us what he found for the pH on his water sample.
Yeah, so this is one of the water samples I got. As you can see for the pH, it's sort of yellowish, sort of greenish, which means it's sort of in the middle range. It's not too acidic and not too basic, which is kind of what we're looking for.
That's great. That's great. And so now we're going to do our last test, which is a chemical test, and that's regarding dissolved oxygen, or DO for short. This measurement will tell us how much oxygen is available in the water. Believe it or not, fish need to breathe too. In the picture, you can see the equipment that we'll be using to test this indicator. So living organisms require oxygen to survive, even fish. So in general, natural waters with constantly huge, high dissolved oxygen levels likely provide healthy and stable environments for supporting a variety of aquatic organisms. DO levels fluctuate seasonally and over a 24-hour period. They vary with water temperature, altitude, and time of day. Cold water can hold more dissolved oxygen than warm water. For example, water at 28 degrees Celsius will be 102% saturated with 8 ppm dissolved oxygen. However, water at 8 degrees Celsius can hold up to 12 ppm of oxygen before it is 100% saturated. When the temperature of water body increases, it is likely that the dissolved oxygen levels will diminish. Water holds less oxygen at higher altitudes, Dissolved oxygen levels also tend to be lower in the early morning because aquatic plants have been resting all night without sunlight for photosynthesis and oxygen generation. Additionally, high levels of bacteria and/or large amounts of rotting matter can cause dissolved oxygen levels to decrease because bacteria require oxygen to decompose organic waste. So let's go back to Domingo and see what his dissolved oxygen level in his water sample is.
Yeah. So my dissolved oxygen level was kind of clear, which means it has very low oxygen. And recently we had a big massive die-off in the Biscayne Bay just because there was a little oxygen. So this is somewhere between 0 parts per million and 4 parts per million, which is pretty bad. So.
And you know what? That's a good reason why we do these tests. So after conducting water testing, you can contribute to EarthEcho's global database at monitorwater.org. By entering your water quality data, you're joining over 1.6 million citizen scientists in 146 countries who have made a commitment to testing and protecting their local surface waterways. Finally, remember to consider how you can use your water quality data to determine what types of actions could help protect your local water resource and improve water quality in your community. Even with social distancing, there are many ways that students and families can make an impact. Let's let Domingo share some of his experiences as an EarthEcho Water Challenge ambassador and member of the Youth Leadership Council. Domingo?
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. So as an EarthEcho Water Challenge ambassador, I was able to reach over 500 kids in my local schools, teaching them about water conservation and leading them through the same water quality testing that you guys just saw here. I also was able to include stuff about the climate crisis, but now I serve as a Youth Leadership Council member on the Water Challenge Committee. So we're actually helping to lead the new class of ambassadors on creating their own events to engage their communities. So thank you, Michelle, for leading that presentation. So now we're going to start looking at some questions. So Michelle, one of the questions we have is, how do these parameters that we just measured help decide if water is healthy or unhealthy? Michelle?
Thanks, Domingo. Yeah, so by doing these tests and figuring it out and comparing them, that gives us a good idea. And so if water is healthy, then nothing needs to be done to that water source. However, if we do get unhealthy results and that are reported, it will go and the local agency regarding maintaining that source will come out, figure out what the problem is, and hopefully solve it soon.
Great. So we have a second question. Can this water testing be used for freshwater also? Like the same water as our drinking water?
We don't normally do that because drinking water has its own parameters. And so we know that that's safe to drink and it's not supporting fish or other lifestyle lifelines.
Cool. I think that's all the questions we have. Yeah, I think that's all the questions we have for now. If anything, we can go back at the end.
Domingo, it looks like we have a question from Kathy, and she's wondering, are there any other parameters that can be indicators of water quality? Michelle, would you like to answer that? Or Domingo?
I do know of some parameters. I know EarthEcho also has like a more advanced water testing kit where it can measure things like phosphorus to see if there's like even fecal matter in our water sources. So there's definitely more advanced water testing kits that can help achieve different parameters. And like Michelle said, drinking water is also different. So we need different parameters to measure that. Oh, and we got a question. Another question, could this be used in coastal lagoons that serve as home or nurseries for marine species, the water testing?
Sure. I think, any water source that sustains plant or fish life, they can all be tested because, again, if parameters are outside the norm, we need to know this and fix this.
Great, thank you, Michelle. So we have another question from Keith asking if you can compare chemical tests and biological tests. So I think he means something about the amount of bugs or the amount of life in the water versus like the more like pH dissolved oxygen.
Well, depending on the pH factor, that sustains life, right? So if you notice that the life around the water source is not as high as it used to be, then that could issue and trigger a problem. So yeah, so you can measure that as well.
Sure, and I think we have one question for me asking about where I got my water source. So I live in Miami, so I live right by the Biscayne Bay, which is kind of like the area between like Miami Beach and like more of the city of Miami. And right now it's going through a really tough time. 2 years ago, we went through like the big algae blooms, although it was more on the West Coast, we did have a little bit on the East Coast. And just recently, like this month, we've been seeing very low oxygen levels, which means a lot of the wildlife is either fleeing the area or just dying here and ending up in our shores, which is pretty sad. But water testing like this can help solve these issues. And we have another question for Michelle. Can you tell us a little bit more about Camp Xylem?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So Camp Xylem is a program that we orchestrate every summer, with the exception of this past year due to the pandemic. But basically, it's a 1 to 6 week program that parents can enroll their children in, and they do all sorts of nature activities. So what we do here at Xylem is 1 or 2 volunteers will go in per week, and we will do a water test kit with the camp groups that we're assigned to. We'll show them this presentation. We'll mark down our results. We'll play a few games, and we'll report back our findings. It's a fun and exciting opportunity, and it gets me out of my desk for a couple of hours. So always a good time.
Yeah, that sounds really fun. So I got a question asking, how did I get involved with EarthEcho, and what have I learned since you've been in the organization? So the first program I was involved with was the EarthEcho Water Challenge Ambassadors, which I highly recommend all of you guys to get involved with that. And what that was about water testing, but also water conservation and engaging our own communities. So like I said before, I was able to go into my local schools, one of them actually being my old elementary school, and I gave presentations like this one, but also with the climate crisis. And we have another question from Kathy asking, do you know what macro invertebrates may be indicators for good water quality? I don't know if you can answer that, Michelle.
That one is a little above my realm, but I can look into it and maybe we can get back.
Sure. And Susan just put in the chat a link to the Youth Leadership Council, which is what I'm currently involved with for EarthEcho. So please take a look at that if you guys want to get involved. Okay, so once again, we would like, we're seeing more resources in the chat. So if you guys want to see those, press on those links. And I think that's all the questions we have for now. I'm not sure if I'm seeing anything else. Okay, so once again, we would like to thank our event sponsors, Xylem Watermark and the Water Environment Federation. And of course, our very special guest, Michelle Muller, for leading this presentation and for giving up her time to lead this. And we hope that you guys will continue to celebrate World Water Monitoring Day, not only this week, but all year long. And we want to ask you to make sure to stay tuned to all of EarthEcho's channels to help stay up to date on events throughout the year. You can access all of our free resources online, and you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel and sign up for our newsletter at earthecho.org. So on behalf of EarthEcho International, we want to thank you so much for tuning in today. And we hope that you guys stay safe, stay healthy, and you guys keep exploring. And make sure to get involved with EarthEcho if you guys want to. So thanks everyone for coming. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.